Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barb Mangle, Community Manager of Known, and I want to welcome you to today's episode of Known Live. In a moment, we're going to be joined by Ron Coleman. He's one of the co-founders of New Haven Counts, and I'll give a full introduction in a moment. But before we are joined with Ron, I want to give you a heads up on some stuff that's coming up on the Known Live business. So tomorrow at 2 o'clock, which is January 18th, we're going to be having our show Pivot Talk, which is a virtual platform for businesses to share and learn as they grow. And we'll be featuring JR of Make Haven. And he's going to talk about maker spaces and how they can balance serving the community through creation while also facilitating maker projects in the community. Then next Tuesday at 8:30 in the morning, that's June 23rd, Digital Media Sync, which is hosted by Julia Good. She's the social media maven of Agents of Branding, and she will have Randy Spina as her guest, and she's going to speak about manifesting the marketing mindset. And then next Thursday, which is the 25th of June at 1 o'clock, we'll be back on Known Live with New Haven artist Raheem Nelson, and he is going to be doing a live demo of how he creates art. And he's also going to be talking about how being creative during times of social unrest can be a really healthy outlet. With that being said, I want to welcome our guest, Ron Coleman. Hi, Ron. So glad you're here with us today.
Hey, Barb. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Great. And just for those folks who don't know, he's in semi-sunny California joining us. And we want Ron to talk today about New Haven Counts and an initiative in particular that I'm very interested in and that the known community is probably interested in, is that they have a goal of creating 1,000 new young entrepreneurs in the next 10 years. When I saw that post on Instagram, I reached out to him and I said, we got to talk. There's got to be a way that we can collaborate. And I was familiar with New Haven Counts because they are one of the ventures that went through the accelerator program in Collab, which is a boost program for entrepreneurs in Connecticut. And I was at the pitch event and saw him. And for those of you who don't know, before I was at Known, I had a long career as a program coordinator for urban education programs. So the topic of education, particularly in urban districts, is very near and dear to my heart. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Ron. Take it away, Ron.
Whew. So much good stuff there. I almost don't even know where to begin. But let's just start with the post, I think, that got your attention. It was meant to catch people's attention. And it wasn't out there just for hype to catch people's attention, to get people on our page. It is our new mission. It has to be out there. Everyone needs to know what it is. And we need to know what it is so that we can garner support. We can hold ourselves accountable to actually hitting that big number, right? 1,000 young entrepreneurs, not just doing a pitch, not just creating a business, but like actually entrepreneurs, business owners, going out there and turning their passions into profit, profit for themselves, profit for whatever organization they launch, whatever LLC that might be. But it's for the community, right? And so we, going back to just how we met, Barb, and talking about us going through Collab and what you knew to be New Haven Counts, right? It was a solution or an answer to a gap in programming, right? We have New Haven Reads, we have Concat, we have Leap, we have some amazing programs. Yale has science and STEM programs, right? But we looked around and we said, is there a need for math intervention, for math tutoring? Absolutely. And parents were saying to a lot of these organizations and to us, former teachers, that where does my child go for extra help in math, for tutoring, right? And I think a lot of that sentiment came from, hey, these other programs are doing such amazing work, right? My son or daughter is now reading on grade level because New Haven reads, right? My child is now learning graphic design because of Concat and sees avenues to a career, right? Avenues to just being financially independent and stable. And so where was this in math? And we know that it's so crucial. So that's how we began, right, as a solution to that problem. But as we started working with students, as we started talking with families, as we became just more ingrained in the New Haven nonprofit world, right, we started to better understand the deeper systemic issues here of racial equity, of economic equity, of social equity. It's not math ability. And at the end of the day, it's not a score on a Common Core test. It's, do we have the knowledge? Do we have the skills? Do we have the tools? Do we have the resources to become entrepreneurs, to become business owners, right? To, in essence, escape the rat race that part of this country never has to identify with. Right. And all too often the system has just made it that's what it is for people of color. This is your avenue. Right. And that isn't how it has to be. If we step up, if the education system steps up, and if all these organizations continue to step up in ways that they already are to make this a reality. And so it's kind of been a progression from math numeracy being the focus. We still do that we're not doing away with it. It's critically important. Like, what happens to a kid's self-esteem when they're in sixth grade and that sixth grade curriculum is just foreign to them, right? What does school become? What does math become every day, right? It's just a frustration, it's stress, right? So we know that's critically important. And we can talk later about how we're addressing that, but I want to stay on the topic of where we've gone, and that's math numeracy, to understanding that math plays a huge part in financial literacy, right? And so what resources that are already out there, companies that are dedicated to that. Jeff Bezos just put a huge investment into, I'm blanking right now. But one of the companies, it'll come back to me later. That happens with old age, right? It'll come back to one of the companies that we use as a entrepreneurship and financial literacy resource. But he knows that that's the future. We know that's the future. We're not going to come up. We don't have the capacity to create, but we have the capacity to connect, right? And use resources that are already out there. But in that process, it's like, you can have knowledge and you can do worksheets, but like, until you live that experience and put that knowledge into practice, till you apply it, till it's implemented, right? That's where real learning comes, and that's where real like sustainable change. So we have just really focused in through, this is the trajectory: math numeracy, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and like those three combined can get us to a place where we have young people by 2030, 1,000 of them, right? Starting to create generational wealth for their current family and then generations to come, right? And that all comes from the model we have now figured out and are going to be testing, because we've gone through iterations of, okay, this is nice, but it's not going to get us the results we want. This is a great program, a great experience, but it's not going to generate six-figure earners. And so we've spent since last summer working on figuring out what is going to be the pivot that gets us to like real change. And so the model here is, recruitment for us is of dollars is basic operating expenses, and then paid internships for young people 16 to 25 who have demonstrated uncanny abilities to succeed and persevere despite lots of challenges, right? Who have a passion and a skill that just needs to be developed and honed, right? And so the big problem that gets identified for even us trying to build New Haven Counts is, we have families, we need to eat, we need to pay the bills, right? And so when you found a startup without having capital, you're working for free, right? And so we have to have our full-time jobs, or people have part-time jobs on the side. And so, but the issue there is time, right? And our students face that at the age of 16 when they feel the pressure to go out and get a job, right? And so what becomes a cycle of, I got to pay the bills, I got to make sure I stay on at my work, and they're telling me I got to pick up a double shift, or else if I don't do what is expected, I'm going to lose my job and I'm going to lose my livelihood and my income, right? So we have identified what is an avenue to decrease that pressure: paid internships to work with us, for us to help you develop your business sense, go through our 24 steps that we have to go from idea, passion, skill to launch, right? At the same time, we connect you to mentors who have developed that discrete skill that you have, right? Who are already killing it in the field that you want to be in. And so you're almost having like, it's like a double edge. You have us as mentors, your business mentors, right? We help you craft how do you become profitable with that. And then your skill mentors can also help you with the profitability aspect, but also they're helping you with like, how do I take my skill from, you know, being above average at 16, 17, 18 to like, I now have gone through like a Google certification course, or I have worked with a master of craft to say like, people will pay me, businesses will pay me, not just my friends or family, right? To do services or create products or sell products for them. And so this is the new model that we are testing, and we're in the infant stages of that. But that's where we're going, and that's where we think gets us to that 1,000, of course.
Agreed. So, burning question, how do you normally recruit your mentors? And if there's anybody listening to this right now who thinks they might want to be a mentor, what do they do?
Awesome. So we're putting together a campaign right now via social media, email, website. Word of mouth is going to be a big one. Traditionally, we have not done a great job of recruiting at scale. We've just opened up our networks and done outreach that way. Word of mouth through kind of 6 degrees of separation, and that way. But we definitely want the word to get out there that we are looking for people who consider themselves to be masters of their craft, to be very successful in an industry, and want to give back to the next generation and kind of pull people up to be the next master of craft in whatever field that you're in. Yeah.
So let's get concrete. What would be the top 4 or 5 like business skills or areas that you think we'd love to have people from these areas?
Absolutely. Number 1, I would say, is graphic design. That's what we're getting a lot of interest from students. Graphic design. The other would be real estate investing / real estate agency. We have a lot of students that are through social media are hearing about how real estate is the next big thing. I correctly would say real estate has always been the big thing if you're looking to get wealthy. Not quickly, but if you're looking to build wealth for your family, for yourself.
Get rich slow scheme.
Yeah. So coding is essential, and is one that I think whether students are realizing it or not, it's essential in every aspect of what people are trying to do, especially going digital. Definitely looking people in the kind of similar to graphic design, but more in the apparel space. We have a lot of students who are interested in opening their own clothing line or merchandise line. And then we have a lot of individuals who are interested in nonprofit management.
Cool.
Yeah. That was actually the biggest the biggest area of need for our first launch of the Life Lab program in 2018. So very, very, very few. Only 2 projects out of the 10 were for-profit based. Everything else was service based.
Wow, that's cool. So you're definitely looking for graphic designers, people who real estate development, coders,
Yep.
people who do, I would call it fashion design, maybe?
Fashion design, absolutely.
I'm missing one here. What was the fifth one?
The fifth one, we said nonprofit management.
Nonprofit management. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I felt like I got a burning
Oh, you're
question.
good.
I guess somebody else has the same question. So anyway, carry on.
Yeah, and I think just on that note, we are obviously not shying away from individuals who can create internships or already have internships in those areas. Paid is obviously better. We know that alleviates even more pressure, but we are looking for unpaid as well, because that's what we've identified as we can provide a small stipends as well. They're small at the moment, but they definitely take pressure off. Let's see where else to go. Just the key that we're hammering home here, Barb, is that I think there's a lot going on right now about whether it's either be an entrepreneur or get a 9-to-5, and it's not either or. They're not mutually exclusive. It's you do what you need to do to have stability, right? And then this is one of the big things that our curriculum goes through at the beginning. It's okay, now that you have that stability, look at who you are as an individual, what your why is, what your talents are, and then look at your schedule to figure out how you plan and how you make time to develop your craft and to build and to be mentored, right? And then down the road, it turns into mentoring, right? Giving back. But that's the big piece there. It's not either or. It's you can do both at the same time. And honestly, in this day and age, it's almost essential to do both at the same time, unless you've been left some form of inheritance or somehow have someone paying all your bills for you, right? And so that's the mindset is the big piece there, and that's what a lot of our new curriculum development is going into. And we're excited to launch that online, so it's virtual, so it's open to anyone, not just individuals who are part of our program or have been working with us in the past.
That's great. Fantastic. Is that just as a result of the COVID-19 situation, or had you had that in the plans already?
I think in all honesty, COVID-19 was the wake-up call for that. We had not planned on using an online model, and we had not planned on doing online sessions, not group sessions at least. I think we had used FaceTime, we had used Zoom in the past for just ad hoc things, but now we're seeing the power of it. We're seeing the flexibility of it, not having to book spaces. And so it just allows for greater reach, greater scale, greater accessibility there. So yeah, COVID-19 was the catalyst for that, for sure. It kind of woke us up to Zoom's capability, and then just there's another way of doing things, right? And I think that's important for any startup or any business that's been going on, has been in existence for 10, 20 years, is how do you create alternative revenue streams, or how do you create alternative services based on current needs, and also based on predicting the future. Anybody who bought up a bunch of Zoom stock and others before COVID hit are
pretty happy right now.
Doing really well right now.
Yeah. So when you said that you're getting ready to launch, when is that launch?
Tentatively, that launch is slated for the first week in August. We're doing a soft launch in-house here this first or second week in July, just to work out some kinks, see if there's any additional videos we need to put on there, any additional worksheets that need to be available. But yeah, it's fun. We're filming right now, and it's beautiful, because anything we do in person from now on, we don't have to do it live. We can pull up the video, and then based on that, we can improvise, and we can address the needs in the room. But it's nice to have a collection.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So do you want to talk about Life Lab specifically? Does that
Sure.
make sense to talk about that next?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think through everything that I've mentioned, I've kind of been talking about Life Lab, but I think getting more concrete is what you mean here. Yeah. So let's take a step back here and revisit how we began, how New Haven Counts started, and launching out of Collab. It was to be the counterpart to New Haven Reads, even though we don't have a space, we don't have 4 locations like they do, but to provide tutoring services free of charge for students in the community. And year one, we matched with 2 schools in New Haven Public Schools, and we brought in tutors and mentors to work with students at a very, very small scale as year one. Year two, we pivoted to test a different model at the Fairhaven Library and partnered with Kirk Morrison and his team over there. And we brought in, started as 5, I think it grew to 6 or 7 high school tutors. So students who were a mix of interests. So some wanted to be teachers, some were New Haven Promise Scholars who wanted a leadership experience and to satisfy community service requirements. And we paired up high school students with K-8 students. And it was also a drop-in style of tutoring. So students and their families could walk over after school right across the parking lot there, or come back. And they were working, setting up that service Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And so we were just getting that going, launching it, a lot of ups and downs with that, definitely more ups and bright spots. And then COVID-19 happened. And so we were forced to obviously stop that program. And that's when kind of the light bulb went off here. And we had already been thinking about, so we had already been acting on Life Lab as how do we also have an alternative service that is more for high school and recent graduates that helps them keep their dreams alive, helps them figure out alternative ways to increase their bank account, to make money, to multiply it, to keep it. And then COVID-19 hit, and obviously our focus has shifted 100% to what this is and what it can be. And so we have just been dissecting the 24-step curriculum that we had been teaching, all of it not being your textbook curriculum that you can pick up and just give to someone, but saying, hey, why can't we make it that, right? And why shouldn't we? Because that opens up a revenue stream for us if we want to put it on Teachable or another website online for very low cost. And that's another way that, pending, we don't have to be dependent on the climate of giving, right? The climate of giving can be extra additional bonus, right? So starting to figure out, hey, as a nonprofit, as a startup, how do you become sustainable, right? And how do you not just be dependent on gifts forever? And then, so the 24 steps, we have been taking and writing out all the scripts and are working on the videos that will go plug directly in virtually into Teachable. And so we're going to launch that, free of charge to our students that we have right now. And then we're going to have a small subscription fee in August when we do the big launch, just to be able to sustain. And so, yeah, it honestly, I can take you through some of the steps of it without going into too much detail. Phase 1 is all about uncovering your why and doing some self-exploration. It's all about mindset work and figuring out how do you, as a 16 to 25-year-old who either already is like gung-ho on being an entrepreneur, or it has the tools and have been identified to be someone that, this could be a path for you. How do we take you out of the mindset of the employee mindset, the school student mindset to the self-learner, right? The business builder, right? How do we put that in place? Because no matter how much information you have and no matter how many vocabulary words about business you memorize and understand, and no matter how many business plans or slides you've made or how much you've talked about, if you don't have the mindset to get up and do the work every day, or to believe in yourself, that's the biggest thing, the belief, not just believing in yourself, but believing that the world is going to support you, right? It's everything is for nothing, right? If we don't have that belief, if the internal is not there, everything else you do is, I don't want to say for nothing, like I just said, but I think it's not going to sustain.
Yeah, that reminds me of a quote I heard a long time ago, which it's very meaningful to me, and it is, whether you believe you can or you can't. Right. So if you believe you can do something, you're going to keep working at it. But if you believe you can't, you're not even going to try.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of sums up what you're talking about.
Right.
I think I don't want to forget these questions. You don't have to address them right now, but two questions that come up for me is in terms of this curriculum, because of my experience in the urban district we worked in, having culturally relevant curriculum really matters.
Yeah.
And to this idea of being a self-learner, I'd like to come back to that if it's possible for us to do that, but I just want to plant those seeds right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. The quote, I don't know who the original author of that quote is, but Will Smith is famous for having videos on that online, and him speaking very powerfully and passionate about that. And he's one of my one of my idols and heroes here, and mentors just for that inner work and that self-belief, right? And just never stopping. Like he's put out so much content and so much wisdom into the world, and also has time for his family too. So I think that's the pinnacle of where we can be and where we can aspire to hit and make impact. But yeah, so that's phase 0. We call it ground zero, just because it's the most important, and you have to come back to it and continue to come back to it. And so that's what we're working on right now, making sure. And this kind of hits on your self-learner piece. Self-learning right now, and maybe in the last 5 years, has been like, how much content can you consume maybe on social media, and how many mentors, when they say things, you go and look them up, and like, how persistent are you going to be about not only tracking down the information, but acting on that information and then learning from it and then continuing to persist and persist and persist. And we're trying to bridge the gap here between like that style of self-learning, where only, I don't have a stat on this, but I'm going to guess it's 5% of people can actually become successful that way. So that's systemically, that's an issue. If that's the notion that, and that's the expectation, we're trying to put in all the steps in there and checklists and like reminders and hints saying, okay, now that you've done this part in stage 5 about doing your 30-day goals, your 60-day goals, your 90-day goals, your 5-year budget, your 10-year budget, right? Trying to get them to think way beyond anything that they can see and have done. It's okay, now come back to phase 0, and like, how does this connect with like you as a person and what you think about and like where you want to make an impact in the world, right? And okay, is this all aligning? Because if it's not aligning, somewhere along the way, you either give up, you lose hope, you lose faith, or you just become burnt out with the work, because no one said being an entrepreneur or business owner is easy. And the push is not for us to say everyone has to be that. The push for us is to say everyone should know that it's an option, right? And everyone should give it the experience, or give it a shot, just to see if it's for you. And I think a lot of times we decide at an early age, or someone decides for us, that a certain path is not for us, is not attainable. And some of that is economic, some of that is cultural, some of that is just like institutional institutional suppression and oppression too, as well. And some of it is like structural inequity that, I mean, many people who teach business classes don't run businesses, or like our teachers have been trained, and I was a teacher, have been trained in one set way, and the curriculum is one set way to say that, like, if this is your goal, right, the school doesn't prepare you for that. So I mean, there's lots of resources out there, but it's how can we have a streamlined curriculum and support and mentorship to actually guide you a lot more along that path until you're ready to take off and fly, right?
Yeah, in terms of you saying, like, letting kids know that this is an option, I think of it like this. If you're going to not choose to pursue entrepreneurship, I want you to understand fully what you're not choosing. It's okay to not choose it. But if you just go entrepreneur and you have this one little idea of what it means, or maybe you have no idea what it means, to make that decision that could change the entire course of your life isn't really a good, well-informed decision. So we want to make well-informed decisions. And if you say, yeah, I don't want to do all that, that's fine, but know what it is you're not choosing.
Absolutely. I feel like the last couple conversations we've had as well, I just nod my head and I'm like, yep, that's completely in alignment here. And I think of one of kind of our core pillars is exposure and opportunity. And where we would love for this to go outside of our goal of, like, personally, whether it's through our program or whether it's through our curriculum, right? Helping 1,000 young people and their families get to six figures, right? Creating generational wealth over the next 10 years, right? It's how can we get it so these opportunities are even exposed at the district level in schools. And so how can we, after we have proof of concept, right? Because you need that to make real systemic change, right? How can we push state legislatures, national boards to say entrepreneurship and just business development in general, or financial literacy, right? How can this be not only a couple objectives in the curriculum, but how can it be something that, like, we test, right? How can it be something that we make sure we're preparing all of our students to come out with a certain, like, bar or a certain level of knowledge and just practice with it? So yeah, that exposure, that opportunity, so that everyone can make informed decisions, right? Just because us and like, there are others out in the social media space and the news space pushing this idea of generational wealth and entrepreneurship in business doesn't mean that everyone has to follow that path, right? You can be completely happy and live a content life without following this path, but it has not been available. It has not been there at scale. So this is our push, and this is our mission within the economic equity realm, and also the racial equity realm as well.
Yeah, agreed. I think one of the things that Known has decided, because of who we are and the type of organization that we are, that it makes most sense for us to put our support behind Black-owned businesses. There's so many ways in which we can contribute to racial justice, and for us that makes sense. And the thing is, there's only so many Black-owned businesses, so your efforts are going to help to expand that, so that we have more Black-owned businesses to support.
Yeah, absolutely. And that 1,000 is Black and Brown owned businesses. That is what we're aiming for. And it's not exclusionary, but it's knowing that that's where equity and justice have led our efforts to be. That is what is needed in not only New Haven, but nationally.
Right.
And so putting that out there, just going back to the beginning, Barb, and how we got connected, putting that out there so everyone sees theoretically what our mission is too, but knows the number as well, is just accountability. And it's saying, this is what we believe in. If you believe in this as well, please reach out so we can partner, right? We are looking for sponsors. We are looking for donations. We are looking for mentors, right? We are looking for future employers. And knowing that you're getting someone, hopefully, who not only wants to be an employee there, but also has a side business running as well, or is coming to be your employee to then learn how to then go run their own company, right? And so that is the space that we want to be in. That is kind of the ethos of our mission. And it's out there, and it's, you know, the numbers may change, Barb, but the passion, the impact, and the population who we're working with is not going to change. So that number, we could see, hey, maybe that number, when the curriculum launches and we get support from, you know, great folks like yourselves, like Known, like Collab, and others, that maybe this spreads like wildfire, and we need to up that number. But I think it's also important to explain how we kind of got to that number. As a former math teacher, you know, you got to backwards plan these things. You don't just pull a number out of thin air and have no work on your paper, right? Like, I even brought this
So show us the math, Ron.
that math is actually something I was working on for investor deck and for our interns. That one of the first trainings we're doing with them is showing them actually what it takes to make six figures as a number. Hoping that's just the benchmark, right? As a business, that's essentially just the benchmark. Right. Showing them what that looks like instead of trading dollars an hour, and looking at, hey, if I start at $10 and I work for 2 years in this company, I can work up to 15 and I can work up to 30. Like, okay, yep, we know about that, but here's an alternative way at looking at business, looking at your worth. It's, if you develop a product or a service and you set your price point or you set your goal, how many times do you need to sell that, or how many times do you need to enact your service to get to that point? And you start to realize pretty quickly that, whoa, if I just dedicate a lot of time up front, I only need 25 people to buy my service at $4,000, or, you know, that's actually $300 a month. If I can develop a lot of time at figuring that out, then I can stop working 40 hours a week, right? Or I can work 40 hours a week to pay my bills, and then this extra is what I can invest in, or how my family can go on vacations, or how we can buy our first home, right? And so taking them through, what does it look like at selling 10 of something to, you know, 4,000, right? If you can do it at scale versus, you know, one time versus reoccurring and things like that, and just breaking down the numbers. Because once you see the numbers, ideas start to generate and flow, and you start to be like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all it is. Cool.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure I didn't get too off task there with that example, because I held up the paper. Where were we before that, Barb?
So I actually feel like I derailed you, because you were talking about it was 5 stages in your curriculum, and we had gotten definitely 1. I think we might have gotten to 2. You might have jumped to 5.
I remember where we were. Yeah, we got derailed a little bit, but that's always okay, because I think all the information is helpful. But anyone who just came on, or anyone who's now re-following our train of thought, yeah, you were asking about the 24 phases that we have, or 24 stages. And then we said ground zero was like the interpersonal, the internal reflection, getting your mind ready, and uncovering your why, right? Then I jumped into phase 5 just as an example to talk about budgeting and goal setting, right? And then so phase 1, you go in after you've done the deep exploration, we kind of call it, is identifying a whole bunch of problems in your world, in your family's world, in your community, things that you would identify as problems or challenges, and then doing like a whole brainstorm around all the ways that you could conceivably, even if they're really far-fetched, right? Like pretend tech is no issue, pretend money's no issue. How could you solve that problem? Like what would make it better? And then so thinking about on a real micro level and also on a macro level, in order to come up with kind of what is your almost value proposition or what is your mission statement, right? And then we go into vision from there. Sometimes it actually happens backwards, where kids figure out, I already have a vision for what it is, and then we go backwards into mission statement, and then value proposition being what makes you unique from all the competitors or all of your partners in the industry. And then we continue to build from there. It's a really interesting process. We're really excited about it. We've all gone from it. And I do want to shout out Collab for the past 2 years. They have helped us. They've come in and taught their value proposition session, because I think they do a really good job of piquing students' interest and not just making about getting down to here are some examples and all of that. They really get them to think about what makes brands unique. And so we've taken a lot of that and put our own spin on it and our own challenges on it. The big thing that we push through each phase and has been building up is getting out there and talking to your family, talking to strangers about your ideas, and just getting comfortable speaking things into existence, and then grappling, because a lot of the learning just comes in the mess, not in just preparing things to be perfect on paper. It's like people genuinely have great questions, and you never know who has just so much more experience or is interested in that, right? And they'll either be, when you talk to people, it's either lesson learned on like your inability to communicate your thoughts. It is a like reassuring moment that you are on the right path and are able to communicate, and you might gain a mentor, you might gain a supporter, you might gain a future customer, and you're just expanding your network and expanding your comfort with public speaking. And then just wanted to mention that like the phase 0, ground 0 through 16 is where the foundation is built, and then 17 through 24 all about internet marketing, fundraising, sponsorships, and things like that, really making sure you're sustainable. So, I mean, we call it, and you'll see it when we put it out there, that it's 24 steps to launch, but really you can launch after step 16. It's kind of the soft launch, and you can be out there after you kind of figure out your doing business as your legal paperwork and all that. And the best part is, if you're under 18 and you have to involve your parents in this if you actually want to take it to the next step. So love that too. And that's a place where we have identified, and our board has helped us identify, like, we have to be better at involving parents in the process. So that's something that we're going to be sitting down in our next couple meetings and thinking through how do we build our own capacity to actually do that.
I worked on a college access program for a long time, and the way that we really made huge strides in working with parents is getting somebody who was one of the parents of our kids to be the parent coordinator. So to have somebody dedicated to that. So finding a parent who, they have to have time. That's the biggest problem, especially in urban districts, of parents, because they're working a bunch of different jobs, or they have just so many responsibilities that their ability to be like on task with you on your organization is really tough. It's not that they don't want to, it's that they don't have time to. So if you can get a parent to be your person who does outreach with other parents, that skyrocketed our parent engagement. Was having a parent who could call up and say, hey, I'm a fellow parent of blah, 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 blah. Here's what's going on.
Yeah, that's a beautiful idea. We've already been talking with our current interns, who are going to be the first round of paid interns, about what the next steps in the progression are, right? Obviously working in partnership with us, obviously connecting you to internships, mentorships, and future employers, right? But also coming on our board as, you know, student members there after we're done with the paid internship cycle. And that is a perfect segue that you just mentioned there too. So I'm gonna bring that back to our team and definitely figure out how we get that to work too. Thank you for that, Barb. I appreciate that.
Now, we're a college access program, which is really different than you. But the other thing that we did that was really powerful was we took parents on college tours, and they were like, whoa, this is amazing. And the parents that went on that were completely dedicated. So I wonder if there's a way that you could give parents the kind of experience in a mini little way that you're trying to give your students so they can see where you're headed, so that they're buy-in. Because that's the thing with everybody. Once you get buy-in, you got people who are like, I don't care what you're doing, I'm buying it, I'm in, kind of thing. So if people can see, like, if the parents can see what's your vision in a way that's almost experiential, then I think that's really going to expand your buy-in from them. And they'll be like, even if I got 5 minutes at 10 o'clock at night, I'll do something, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's where these internships are going to really skyrocket that parent engagement and see the level of detail and the connections and the thought that we've put into this. So yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. Great. Well, we have about 15 minutes left, and I know that for me, this time has flown by, and I just want to see if there's other things that you wanted to be sure to mention that we haven't gotten to, so that we can make sure we get to them before our time is up.
Yeah, I think we mentioned we mentioned part of we mentioned the how, we mentioned the what. I think part of the why that's critically important here, and we kind of touched on, but I want to go into some more like detail about is the why for math intervention, the why for math tutoring. Why would we connect high school students to K-8 students, and why do we think mentorship at that level and that connection could be so important for the community and any community? Is that money in terms of the budget just statewide and at the district is always going to be an issue. But if we're connecting to populations that have the most time, right? That'd be K-8 students, right? No job, right? After school, you have time. And then high school students who, many have jobs, but they do have more time than adults, and they also have the will to, and they have the genuine want to help and to give back. And they crave leadership experiences, right? So that connection alleviates the need for the district to have to say, oh, well, we can't do tutoring because we can't pay teachers to stay after. Well, we don't need that. Everybody can go to the library, and high school students can satisfy their community service requirements that they have. They can get great leadership experience. They can feel like they're making an impact and really make an impact. And then that also alleviates a huge pain point for teachers of students not completing their homework, right? It's very hard. I know this from experience, and any teacher out there can attest. If students aren't doing their homework and showing that they have mastered the concept that was taught, you can't go to the next lesson. Or you do go to the next lesson, and it's compounding. Everything builds. It's like reading early on. If you miss certain foundational blocks of phonemic awareness and everything, right? Just your understanding is not there. And your ability to just read text is not there. So it's all a process. And I think that's what the world needs to understand. It's like, when you miss things or you skip things, it comes back to find you. And so we really feel this is an avenue to support teachers, support schools, support families, right? Connecting high school students to K-8 students. That's a natural connection. It's a natural bond. Everyone looks up to high school students and they want to make an impact. And it just gives them something to do as well, something meaningful to do, right? And then so that's the why with like math tutoring intervention. I think anybody who is entrenched in New Haven public schools or just Connecticut public schools knows that, 20 to 25% pass rate on the state test. And so New Haven Counts at its core is not a proponent of, we do not believe high stakes testing is important, or does it do a service to the community. I just want to put that out there, but it's there, and any test is it shows what you do know. So whether the test is biased in a way, which we believe many of them are, it still shows what you know. And if there's a huge gap, that's an issue, right? Especially in something like math, where it's predominantly numbers. Now, yes, you can create math tests that are more culturally supportive and less culturally biased, but still at the end of the day, it's numbers. And if there's a huge gap like that, there is an issue. So that is why we still say we need to focus and have a program that is available for math intervention, right? For math enrichment. And so that's the connection there. That's the mentorship piece. The why for financial literacy is obviously the median income in our city, the median income for Black and brown folks across the country. We want to be part of change in raising that, right? And we know a lot of things have to happen structurally at the systems level. And that's where, as we have proof of concept and we have more capacity, we definitely want to push and will be pushing. How do we create a more just education system? But we also have to work at the individual level too, and bringing that up, right? So it's at both ends. And then the third piece on the why, and the last stat that I do want to throw out there that keeps us going and is something that we want to be part of change, is that 4% of venture capital nationwide goes to women and minority founders. So women and people of color, which is
abysmal,
ludicrous, and it is just unjust, inequitable, and part of what's wrong with our capitalist society. But I personally don't believe capitalism is going anywhere. And I do know that we need to take back some of that 96% while fighting the system at the same time. So individually, we need to take back part of that 96%. We want to be part of that fight. But so in support, bigger, larger corporations like Harlem Capital, who are fighting at that, Tulsa Real Estate Fund and all that. And then we also want to be part and recognize the support that, organizations like Black Lives Matter nationally, Black Lives Matter New Haven are doing to fight the system as well, and to put pressure on any inequitable and unjust institution. So we want to be at both ends, but right now we are fighting more at the individual and micro level to have proof of concept, right? You can't go to the macro level without proof of concept. And we do know there are such great organizations already working at that macro institutional level. So we support them. And we are out here right now working in the micro space.
Right. Yeah.
To have proof points, to build up our interns, to build up several families, right? We're working with 5 at the moment. So 5 can then become 10. And then once you get to 10, you really have proof of concept that can go to 100. And then 100 can scale to 1,000 just because of the internet, just because of virtual learning, and just because of Zoom. Honestly, we can, after we have that proof of concept and we have more funding, and we're operating at full steam, and we have our mentors who are dedicated, right? We have our partners, we have our sponsors and supporters. That's how we can get to 1,000. Start with 1, head to 5, get 10, build to 100, mass out to 1,000.
So speaking of sponsors, I noticed on your website that you have a spot for sponsors and you have a spot for donate. So what's the difference between someone making a donation to New Haven Counts and someone being a sponsor of New Haven
Awesome,
Counts?
awesome. So we actually have 3 spots right now. So please, I know Barb has my email here. If you're ever on our website and have questions or there's confusion about which one to use, always just reach out. But yeah, Barb, that's great, and thank you for pushing us there. So donate is the option if you would like to give to our operating budget as an organization, and there is a place to put a note in there if you have a specific want or ask for those dollars. So www.newhavencount/donate is for charitable donations. If there is no note, it is operating budget used as we deem most necessary and the priority at the moment. /sponsor, the sponsor tab on our homepage, it can be found on any page actually, is for sponsoring student businesses, student ventures, student development of skill and craft. And so that page is still a little bit in the works to build out and have all that information on there, but that is for sponsoring students specifically. So okay. None of that will go to operating budget. That will go towards students' budgets, materials that they need, education that they need to get in order to become successful in whatever career it is, whatever venture they're trying to develop. And then the third is basically the same thing as the sponsor, is our /all-in page. Okay. That is a campaign we have just created during COVID, and that is all in on the Life Lab curriculum and what that does for students and their businesses. So honestly, that's the same thing as sponsor. And if you see on there in the GoFundMe page, we are far away from our goal right now, but we do have the actual total right now. I think says 1,200. It's really 12,000 because we have a couple. We have substantial donations that didn't actually hit the GoFundMe page. We had to GoFundMe had something going on with their system, and for a while we had substantial donations that were coming in via the donate page or via check. So we are 1/5 of the way towards our goal for having Life Lab up and running for the next 2 years to complete that process that we talked about of taking 5 families to 10 families to 100 families. Right. And then Barb, I think it's just helpful because it's nice to put information out there for anyone who is listening to this. Our fundraising goal in perpetuity to have our operating budget last 20, 25, 30 years is 1.5 million. That's what we need to have New Haven Counts and Life Lab, the tutoring and mentoring, the entrepreneurship, the building and developing of 1,000 young people and their families to become financially free, to gain generational wealth, right, is 1.5, and that will last us. That will give us our 5% withdrawal of endowment for 20, 25 years. More if we're as good at investing our business as we have been, personally. So if that's the hope there, that we can do a big round of fundraising. We find individuals and partnerships and sponsorships that are all in on creating Black and brown entrepreneurs, at raising the median income for low income families in New Haven and across the globe. That is the vision. That is the mission. That is what we're all about. That is what myself and Dan Hicks and Dom Dugo and our board work tirelessly on top of our full-time jobs to do for our interns, for our students, for everyone out there who has a dream and has a purpose, but right now life is preventing them from being able to explore that, to master it. And thank you so much for having us. I think that's a good place to stop.
Thank you so much, Ron, not just for being on the show, but for the enormous amount of effort. And you just now said it for the first time, you work full time on top of this. So you're doing the thing that you're talking to your students about, and it's not like, you're working full time on it. So I really, thank you so much for your service to the community. And for those of you who want to follow up You can find New Haven Counts on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook at New Haven Counts. And you can also go to newhavencounts.org and you can get to all those different sponsorship, donate, etc. Pages that he was talking about. And then in terms of Known, I just want to remind you that tomorrow at 2 p.m. we have Pivot Talk featuring JR from Make Haven, and he's going to be talking about how maker spaces can balance serving the community through creation while also facilitating maker projects in the community. Next Tuesday, the 23rd at 8:30 in the morning, we have Digital Media Sync. Julia Googe will invite her guest speaker, Randy Spina, who will speak about manifesting the marketing mindset. And then next Thursday, again on Known Live, which is the 25th at 1 p.m., we have New Haven artist Raheem Nelson, who will be talking about being a creator, and he will actually do some creation right on the screen as as we're live, and how creative people can make it through times like this through their creation. So thank you again, Ron. I'm sorry your students weren't able to make it today, but perhaps we can have you again either in the live space or on Known Live again, and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to be there live in August when I'm back home with them. Of course. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Barb.
All right.